Try that again with the mic on. I'm going to go ahead and call the January 23rd, 2024 Bartram Bridge Joint Commission Preservation Board together. And if we can start with who is here. Eric is here. Ed. Derek. He's not here. Bart, I'm sorry. And then Tony. Okay. And if we can have a moment of silence and then we'll do the pledge. Right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for this evening? Okay. Perfect. Okay. That's Bart and Eric. All in favor, say aye. And all right, now can I get a motion to accept the whole agenda? Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. So motion made by Eric, seconded by Ed. All in favor, say aye. All right. We would normally take public comment. I do not see anybody in the public, so we will just make note for the record that we have none. And I will now take nominations for the chair. Oh, I'm sorry. We've changed the order and I did exactly what I did. I now take appointment of the new board member from Willistown for this 2-year period. Great. So I have a motion from Bart and a second from Eric. And all in favor? Okay. Welcome, Tony. Now I'll take nominations for the chair. Sorry. Okay. Second with Eric. Ed, do you accept the nomination? Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, all in favor of Ed Johnson being the chair? Any opposed? All right, carries 4-0. Ed, I will turn the meeting over to you as the chair. You want to go ahead and do a vote? Just, yeah. There you go.
Bart, I did print some out from the internet just in case, so I can distribute them if you wish. I can distribute copies of the minutes if you want. I do.
I might make one other recommendation for your motion. For the software picked up my name as secretary. Who was your secretary last or this year? Bart, you were the secretary, correct? So we need to change it from my name to your name there. Yes. Yeah, we will get both of those changed as well. And the other thing we'll make note of is that the meeting was actually at Willistown. Because it's showing our letterhead, it doesn't show that, so we'll make note that it was at Willistown. I think you did too. Okay. With all of these changes, if I can make a recommendation that when you meet next time, let's have them cleaned up and then you can just approve them at that meeting. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot of different little changes. So to make sure we get them all right, let's do that and let you approve it at the next meeting. We will, we'll just take in Bart's minutes, we'll go back and publish those as what they were instead of having them converted to our system. You're going to take action at the next meeting. I think you've given us enough. We'll do that. You don't need to make a motion because you're not accepting them. You're not rejecting them. You're just having us get them corrected and then bring them back to you. Okay. So you don't have a treasurer's report tonight, so you have none. We're going to get this meeting done in record time for you guys, aren't we?
I did have a structural.
Oh, George has a structural report for the cost of the structural work, so he'll share that with you.
No, I did. So I'll just draw your attention to the Bartram Bridge Structural Rehabilitation Project report, which was just distributed to you. What we've been doing with this report is giving you a running tally of the rehabilitation project expenses, which are all engineering at this point. So there are only 2 additional invoices that were added to the bottom. And again, you can see now the $350,000 that was budgeted, all of the expenditures so far, and the balance that's at the bottom. So the grant, the 100,000 Keystone Preservation Grant is a reimbursable amount. So when the 2 townships expend the funds, then the state reimburses us the $100,000 after we've expended it. So we have the agreement, or everything's lined up, and we actually send quarterly reports to that Keystone Grant Division and let them know how the project is progressing. We just have not expended anything that we have asked for reimbursement from them yet. We figured we would do that at the time of construction.
Talk about that. Do you want to accept this into your record as you can do that as a motion and acceptance? I'll give you a quick kind of where we were as the 2 townships. And so George and well, let me back up and go and say this, that I think you all know that it went out for bid I believe at the end of December, is that correct? And then there were quite a few questions that came in, and George worked with the engineer to answer all those questions. And I know it ran through all the parties that bid to make sure everybody was on the same page. Then when we got to the actual, was it last week? Before? The bid opening was the 8th of January. At that time, George and Bill and myself and the engineer, Keith, were all here. And we looked at the bids. They came in at, there was one bid that got submitted. It was $750,000. Or $740,000 is the base bid, and then the alternate bids were obviously beyond that. Obviously, that was much above our budgeted number. And so the engineer went back and did some review, looked at everything, but it came back and was, that was the bid, that was everything that was in place. So last night happened to be that both townships had a meeting last night, and my understanding is that Willistown, they rejected the bid, and the township, Newtown, also rejected the bid, with the instructions to go back to the engineer, and we're going to work with Keith from the engineering team, and we're going to look at it, putting it together probably as like 3 different bids. The stonework is one bid, the structural repair is one bid, and then the siding. And we're hoping that we can kind of put the stonework is together, go out and get like a good estimate. And if that number doesn't meet the threshold of having to go out to bid, we could do it with quotes. We would do quotes. We think it might be over when we would bid that out first, get that stonework done, and then we would move forward with the structural work. We're hoping that by doing that, we would potentially get one more bidders, you know, who may focus on specifically what it is that you want done, and hopefully get lower pricing so that we could afford to at least get the stonework done and the structural work done. We may not get to the point that we can do the siding. And so, you know, 740,000 was a big number. I believe the siding was about 84,000 or something like that, of that number. So there's still a long way to go to get us back to 350. So we've been kind of working together, the two different staffs from the two townships, going back and forth, and George and Bill have been working together constantly on this all the way through. But they've, even especially now, we've been working, and both Shauna and I have been working with them, kind of talking through like, what's the game plan to get us keep moving forward, so we can at least get some work done and see what that would look like. So we're going to spend the next couple weeks. Both boards meet again on February 12th, and we hope to have an action plan by that point that we can go back out to bid, or at least advertise, or whatever we need to do at that point. And so we'll hopefully have a game plan at that point that we can move forward with, and then get the two boards moving forward, and then hopefully get you some bids. Probably in the, maybe you meet again in March, is that right? So hopefully it's your March meeting. We would be able to have another update for you that we've gone back out and at least have something moving forward in some direction. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other piece that we might look at is that somebody that might be able to do the stonework couldn't do the structural work, or vice versa. And so you might get, you know, somebody that we hadn't even thought about being involved in the project. I do believe as my understanding was, the research that was done on the bidder was definitely qualified to do this job. There was no question about that. It's just that the price point was significantly outside of what the two townships had budgeted. And to come up with that difference, neither township was in a position to come up with that difference at this time. We know how important it is, so we don't want to leave it, but we just weren't prepared for that number. It was a big number. Yeah. Let me just say, as a manager, I get to work with lots of folks and talk to lots of different managers. I think both townships are very fortunate to have very, very capable public works directors, and we're both very blessed in that side of it. So I think giving them, working with the engineer to go move forward, you will end up with a good project. I have all confidence in that.
Big threshold is 23,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not out of ordinary to maybe to be able to find mason that's looking for work
Yes.
to come in under the 23, where that would even speed the process up, not have to go to bid. So if anybody knows of masons,
Local guy.
there's a,
legend around.
I think,
But if it was just that, he may be willing to come in and do that because may not have wanted to do siding and some of the other stuff.
Off the bridge.
and we
Yeah,
would
That-
still
no,
want
he did reach out to me.
Keith to put together some kind of
Yes,
platform.
Yeah.
As far as what needs to be done, does something need to be dug out, that we need for a concrete footing first, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Putting things together.
so so the engineer is now going to work with Bill and I, and we'll tee up breaking the project into those three aspects. And I think we're gonna be focusing on the stonework first. As soon as we have that stonework portion ready to go, we will start reaching out to people we could get quotes from. Because again, the quote process is different and a little easier than the public bidding process. And if we can get some stonemasons in there and get some quotes, we're moving while we're getting the other pieces in motion. So as soon as we have that stone part teed up, we can reach out and get some ideas of stonemasons from you and make some phone calls.
I have at least one guy that's really good. Whether he's interested or not, he's getting older. So, we'll see. But I think with all our heads together and anybody's contacts, you being in the construction business, I'm sure you deal with masons on a daily basis,
And Paul.
right?
He came down last year and looked at it and was looking. Oh, this. At it.
Yep.
Yep.
So. Yeah, awesome.
So that's where we are. Yeah, I mean, here's what I can tell you, I'm not going to guess what Willistown Board's going to do, and I'm not even going to guess what Newtown Board's going to do. But, if we get really close, I mean, obviously I'll go back and we'll have a conversation with our board. We'll let Willistown have a conversation with their board and see where we go. I think if we're still off by, 150, 200,000, I think it's still too much, so what we might end up doing is we get part of the project done now and then, set some more money aside for the next go round. I think this grant's good for 2 years, 3 years. Up on the, so we have to definitely move forward with this grant's funding. But, we'll work through that and do as much as we can. But I wouldn't commit to the townships necessarily making up the difference. I think if it's small, probably the townships would make up the difference. I think if you're talking hundreds of thousands, I don't know that either township's in a position to do that at this point. Yeah, So, and so that's kind of where we are. We just have to kind of work with what we've got and we'll do it. George and I have had several projects like this recently, where we've gone out to bid. The dollar's been way more than what we thought. The project's still sitting there. We're still working at it, trying to figure out how to break it down into pieces. And, I mean, some things you can't, you can only do so much, but with what we can, we'll do. And, maybe we do part of the structural work, get the bridge solid, and then come back and do some more repair, and do it over a couple year basis and figure that's out and figure out what the real needs are going forward. I think there's a commitment from both communities to keep the bridge. I don't think there's anything like that going there. So I think there's a commitment that it needs to happen. And potentially, you know, I know that you guys have talked about doing some fundraising. Maybe that becomes a driver to help you do some fundraising, because you can say, here's the amount we need, and you can go forward.
Probably after the next.
Yep.
We'll have a better idea. And
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. So after the next update, if we're back, we can. Yeah, I'm all about that.
And
That's why we're-
I think you need to keep in mind too, that $350,000 is still a lot of money. And it's not an active bridge. I mean, it's a historic structure that we're trying to save.
Yep.
So, you know, I think $350,000 is, it just so happened we got one bid on a plan that was put together, and that hurt. You know, it's different if you could look at different, you know, say you got 5 different bids and one was at 365 and one was at 410 and the other, you know, they climb progressively, you know, then you can take a look at something and see, well, in the 365, what did he do to come up with his number as opposed to what this guy at 750,000, and you didn't have that luxury this time. So.
Yeah, it's hard when you only get one bid, because it's hard to know, like, what
It's
it
a bit local.
was the,
Delaware, I believe.
yeah, Delaware. And when you only get one bid, you know, is it because nobody wants the job? Is it, you know, you don't really know what the whole issues were. Yeah.
It's not the end.
We're going back out, we're staying with it, you know. We're gonna get something done, I think. I really do believe that. I just don't know how much right this moment.
Process. All a company. It was.
So, yeah, so here's what you can do and what you can't do. There's no reason why you can't notify somebody that you've gone out to bid. You can send out a notice, you can advertise it, and then if there's somebody that you really want to bid on it, you're welcome to say, you know, I just want to make you aware that we've opened up for bids. Now, what you can't do is start kind of going in and saying, well, we can get you this job if you do this, this, and this, you know, because that's the whole area that gets you in trouble. So, but you can notify, we do that all the time. We come up with projects that we want to do, and we have certain companies that we like to work with. We make sure they're aware of it, and then we leave it. You know, it's up to them whether they bid or not. After the bidding process, if somebody hasn't bid that you thought would bid, you can reach back out and say, is there a reason why you didn't bid? And my understanding is we're going to reach out to the company in Lancaster and find out why they didn't bid. You know, were they not aware that we went out? You know, what was the reason they didn't do? We think they were aware. I think we thought they pulled plans, but they didn't submit a bid. We had several groups that started putting bids in and never actually hit submit in the system. So we just want to understand what happened, why they didn't. So we'll start asking some of those kind of questions, and we can do that on the other side. But like if we get a bid, let's say for the stonework that's under 23,000, we have to have 3 bids, but we can go out and we can solicit bids from very specific people, and you know somebody, we can go ask, give us a bid. That's very much allowed, and you can do that. Okay, but you can't say, oh, I can give it to you, because we have to take the lowest responsible bidder.
Three prices.
You need still 3 quotes. Yes, but you don't have to go through the formal bidding process in the process, you know, to it. You don't have to go through Penn bid. I mean, you don't have to go through Penn bid to go through the formal bidding process. Penn bid works well because it allows people to know what's out there. You have a central place where you're answering all the questions. You have a central place where all the stuff gets submitted. There's a way then to, we think there's a way then to let people know what the bids were. We're working through that. But anyway, so the nice thing about Penn Bid is it gives you a format to use, but it's just a platform. The process is you have to have a formal advertisement. You have to have a time in which you open the bids. It's a set time. People have up to that time to submit bids. You know, there's some steps that have to be followed very clearly. When you do the quote process, it's not necessarily everybody's got to submit a quote by this time. You can go out and get 3 quotes. You're just not allowed to discuss the quote that you got with anybody else, because then that gets you in trouble. I don't look very good in orange, might have an orange tie sometime, but I don't want to be in jail, and I don't think anybody else can. So we're very careful. Both teams understand this, and we do this all the time, and, you know, they'll go through those steps and make sure that we do it right. Yes. Yeah. But you still have, depending on where we are in that process, you know, if we get a quote that's under 23 for the stonework, then we'll just go get 2 other quotes, and then we'll head in that direction. If we have to go, we think the structural part is definitely going to be more than that. That has to be a sealed bid process.
And they'll be based on Keith's
Yeah,
drawings and plans or whatever.
Exactly.
Is put together by the engineer so that there is documents to go out.
I think we ended up with what, about 20 questions, something like that?
There were about 20 questions that came in, and I should say there were a lot of entities that downloaded documents and the bid packet from Penn Bid. So there was a lot of interest in the project. And there were, I think there were a number of entities that appeared that they were going to bid and then didn't. And we don't know why they didn't, but they kind of started the process, but they didn't finish the process. So the interest is out there. Right. So that information is going to be helpful, and we'll make sure that the questions that came in during the process are incorporated into the bid documents if we need to tweak anything.
I would agree with that. And I will say that, I mean, I think both townships have said that this is important. That's why we're here. And that's why you guys exist. We want to preserve the bridge, but you still have to do it within the budgets that we have. And that's, where we're going to move forward, and we're going to do the best we can with what money we have, and we'll do that.
It showed.
That's great.
Day that I played.
Oh, that's neat.
Site.
Well, and Ed, thank you so much for doing that and,
Yeah.
and taking the effort to put Bumble up there.
I found the meeting. It was like, and then I saw this giant. When I went home, I just started laughing. It's so easy, but I'm just like, just get a button. 3 days later, but still make you say it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
My phone rang. I was getting texts. And so the day I was playing it. But we had fun time. It's, I noticed that, so Larry, All-Star, all these. Tupperware, brain. Loves. Oh.
That's great.
Don't know. That's part of fun. That's no man like me hold up a sign.
No, that, you would have done that,
At the Willistown meeting.
I would think you would have done that at the Willistown meeting. I don't know if you actually did it or not.
Yeah, I'll check my notes from that meeting and I'll make sure that I'll make sure it's correct. Again, we're using Bart's original minutes as the basis, and I'll just check my notes on that. Yes.
Okay. So they were approved. It just was written funny. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It is, but like I said, I'm a phone call away. Understood. It depends on where I want to visit. I go back there, they're gonna want me to do more. No, it's been a long time. I can remember September of 2011 when I started at Willistown. Dave Berman coming to me, say, hey, you're gonna do these meetings. And I'm like, well, this is under Parks. I said, why isn't Director of Parks Recreation doing this? And he says, now you're gonna handle this. I said, okay. I remember.
Yeah, I've been alone forever, as long as you feel like.
Yeah, yeah. We had our moments. I mean, where we're at now is totally different than where we were. I mean, now we have some meat and we can get something done. And I don't want to see that stop. I mean, it took a long time to do it. I remember when we first put the roof on and we had a price, I think, of $19,000 for the cedar shake roof. And the gentleman that you knew in Echo Valley came up and said, look, I'm gonna do that. I can do that roof for the same number and we'll put standing seam on there. And it's a 50-year roof. And I said, well, that's a no-brainer. And I think everybody jumped on board that because, I mean, what's the most important part of your house? The roof. Make sure it stays dry and everything underneath it stays sturdy. So that was like a feat that I was very happy with. Rich Garrity. Yeah, and just to go down there and see you two crawling around like spiders up on top of there, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, they probably have harnesses on. I'm just gonna leave. So there's actually still a couple pieces of the replacement up there just in case there's tree damage. I believe already been. And it's still in the bridge. So.
Great. That's not right. It's a little bit, it's fine because it's